The film commences with a video recording from April 13, 2008, in which a father named James is capturing moments with his daughter June, affectionately known as Junebug, by her mother, Grace Allen. Grace enters the scene and takes over the camera, and as she records them, a sudden nosebleed afflicts James, coinciding with the video's cessation. The narrative then transitions to someone editing the video, trimming it just before the nosebleed incident, saving it under the title Last Family Trip, and storing it in a folder dedicated to June. The on-screen content suggests that James, the father, met his demise due to brain tumors. The unidentified editor subsequently erases the Google account, accompanied by farewell messages from contacts, while contemplating a move to Los Angeles. The storyline shifts to a crime scene monitored by police and reporters, eventually revealing it as part of a Netflix series. Fast forward to 2022, June, now 18 years old, grapples with constant text messages from friends soliciting money for various purposes. When her mother, Grace, calls, June exhibits frustration as her mother overuses Siri for mundane tasks. A brief insight into Grace's background follows. She became the sole caregiver for June after James's passing and has recently entered a relationship with her boyfriend, Kevin Lynn. They plan to embark on a week-long trip to Colombia, prompting Grace to lay down some rules for June during her absence, including abstaining from alcohol, not permitting strangers into the house, and keeping her location services enabled. Grace also mentions Heather, a lawyer who holds a spare key to their house for June's potential needs. June feels exasperated at being supervised like a child, but is intrigued by the emergency funds mentioned by her mother. She promptly loans $120 from the emergency money to her friend, Vina. Subsequently, Grace's boyfriend, Kevin Lynn, arrives, expressing his affection for June's mother before Grace intervenes and requests that he arrange an Uber ride to the airport. Grace instructs June to pick them up at the Los Angeles airport on Monday, while June's expressions silently beseech her mother to depart. After Grace and her partner leave in an Uber, June receives a farewell message from her mother. Her friend, Vina, notifies her that they are ready to party at June's house. Kevin, who has embarked on the trip with Grace, sends photos from Colombia but clarifies that it's Grace sending the messages. Heather, Grace's lawyer, brings food for June and reveals her envy regarding Grace's happiness with Kevin. A montage unfolds, portraying June engaging in revelry with her friends, squandering her emergency funds, while her parents share snapshots of their Colombian journey. June spends her days enjoying her time with friends until the calendar date signifies Father's Day. Despite the occasion, June indulges in heavy drinking at a party, culminating in her vomiting. Later that night, June finds herself alone in the dark, watching the video recording of her father with the camera. She posts a picture of her father on Instagram, expressing her wish for his presence. The following morning, June awakens to the realization that a week has passed, and she must retrieve her parents from the airport, despite her house being in disarray. With no alternative, she resorts to hiring housekeeping services from an online platform while preparing to collect her mother and Kevin from the airport. However, as time passes with no sign of her mother and Kevin, June's concern mounts, and she discovers that they haven't shown up, even after the last passenger departs the airport. Her attempts to contact them go unanswered. Worried, June contacts the Colombian hotel where her mother and Kevin were staying. Despite the language barrier, she uses Google Translate to comprehend the hotel staff's message. She learns that her mother and Kevin left all their belongings behind, and the hotel's CCTV footage is only accessible for 48 more hours. Lacking the funds to travel to Colombia, June reaches out to Heather for assistance. Heather promptly contacts the Colombian embassy, obtaining a missing person report form, and urges June to request an agent before the hotel's CCTV footage expires. An FBI agent named Park informs June that they lack jurisdiction for a Colombian investigation and need to collaborate with local authorities, but the remaining time to access the CCTV footage is limited. Agent Park seeks access to her mother's email account to track her whereabouts. Unfortunately, June's attempts to enter the correct password for her mother's account prove unsuccessful. As 4 hours elapse, Vina suggests utilizing live cams, similar to those featured in the series they watched, but this yields no meaningful results. June turns to Go Ninja, a platform resembling TaskRabbit, to employ a local housekeeper in Colombia to recover the hotel's CCTV footage. Javier, an English-speaking individual who hasn't seen his son in 3 years, offers to assist June after understanding her predicament. June instructs him to return to the hotel and review the CCTV footage. Shortly thereafter, her friend Vina joins her at home, and together they embark on a quest to decipher Kevin's Google password, assuming it may be the same as the password he uses on other websites. With Vina's persuasive voice, they call the customer service line of a website used by Kevin, providing all the required information for verification. This ingenious approach finally grants June access to Kevin's Google account, enabling her to track his phone. However, when June reviews Kevin's journey history, she discovers a conspicuous absence of location history for the day before their flight back to Los Angeles. June is soon notified by Javier, who regretfully informs her that the CCTV footage has already been deleted. However, a cleaning lady at the hotel mentions witnessing 2 Americans leaving for a hardware store, sparking June's suspicion of Kevin's involvement. June immediately contemplates tracking Kevin's credit card and identifies 8 hardware stores near the area where his card was last used, which Javier needs to investigate. Heather believes it's best to leave such matters to the police, but June, while searching through Kevin's email, inadvertently stumbles upon a picture of a woman. This picture reveals that just a few months ago, Kevin planned to meet this woman, identified by her email address as Bunny Cake. Curious, Vina suggests checking Kevin's blocked contacts, uncovering numerous women with whom Kevin had interactions. It's also disclosed that Kevin used different names with various women, most of whom were pursuing reimbursement. Upon further investigation, it's unveiled that Kevin is a convicted felon who served 3 years in prison before his release from federal custody the previous year. June is irritated that Agent Park hadn't informed her earlier, but is reminded that she's unlawfully accessing Kevin's account, rendering this evidence inadmissible in court. She proceeds to look up the account of the woman with the Bunny Cake email address and discovers her Instagram. Contacting the woman's workplace, June learns that the woman has been absent for 2 weeks. June revisits Kevin's location history and realizes he frequented the workplace of Bunny Cake. Utilizing one of his commonly visited locations, June obtains the phone number of Kevin's friend, who discloses that both were ex-convicts and that he met Kevin in a church. This friend, Jimmy, believes that Kevin was determined to put his criminal past behind him. Javier calls June with an update, managing to obtain a receipt for Kevin's recent purchase, revealing it to be a lock. Acknowledging his assistance, June expresses her gratitude. Continuing her online search, June decides to investigate how Kevin and her mother initially met. To her astonishment, she finds an email leading her to the first conversation between her mother and Kevin on a dating app. These messages unveil a deep bond and a genuine relationship between Kevin and her mother. Her mother was already aware of Kevin's past, and he was sincerely in love with Grace Allen. However, the critical discovery is that Grace Allen was not her mother's real name. June uses information from her mother's profile and identifies a romantic tourist location near the lock shop, the Walled City Love Lock Bridge. Javier is dispatched to locate the padlocked initials of Kevin Lynn and Grace Allen, confirming their presence. June utilizes live camera feeds to locate Kevin and her mother, reviewing previous footage. As she watches the live footage, she witnesses Kevin proposing to her mother with an engagement ring. Simultaneously, June receives a recording from Agent Park depicting Kevin and his mother's kidnapping following the romantic proposal. The video shows a money transfer from Grace's account to an encrypted third-party account. Upon viewing this, June is devastated by her mother's loss without the opportunity to say goodbye. She re-examines Kevin's messages and notices that one of the pictures of her mother is a live photo. When she explores further, she discovers that the woman in the picture is not her mother but Bunny Cake. Subsequently, the FBI holds a press conference, asserting that Grace Allen is still in Los Angeles. They disclose that Grace was a victim of Kevin's scheme and reveal that Bunny Cake is actually Rachel Page. Kevin had hired a look-alike woman to impersonate Grace, who was kidnapped before her flight. The Uber driver is suspected of being hired by Kevin, as Uber has no record of the trip. In Colombia, the FBI encounters a group of students who admit to being paid by Kevin to stage the kidnapping. Rachel Page is later arrested but claims that she was merely a call artist hired by Kevin to impersonate Grace as part of a reality TV show. Agent Park then inquires if Grace has ever used other names, and June insists her mother solely went by Grace Allen. It's revealed that Grace Allen is just one of the aliases of the mysterious woman, whose real identity is sealed by a court order. Heather, June's mother's lawyer, concurs that her mother never disclosed this information. The FBI clarifies that Grace is not currently a suspect, but the community speculates whether she was Kevin's accomplice in an attempt to start a new life. The revelation sparks a frenzy on the internet. June is highly distressed by these developments and is unwilling to accept the community's conjectures. She investigates Kevin's internet history and discovers an encrypted messaging app called Guys. By posing as Kevin, she contacts the user and obtains the phone number, which she traces back to Heather's office. June decides to visit Heather's office while recording the experience with her smartwatch. Inside the office, she observes that files are being deleted, indicating recent activity. She stumbles upon a threatening note and a photograph depicting Heather's necklace scattered on the floor. She enters the office storage room to find Heather murdered. Later, Agent Park speculates that Heather possessed information that Kevin wished to keep hidden. Oddly, Kevin is still in Colombia, raising questions about Heather's killer. A video sent to June provides the FBI with Kevin's whereabouts, leading to his death in a confrontation with the police. Seemingly at a dead end, June revisits old voicemails from her mother and remembers her childhood nickname, Junebug. She attempts to log in using Junebug and successfully gains access to her mother's Gmail account. June checks her mother's last known location, revealing that the location data was lost near Los Angeles Airport. She also discovers a blocked email message that reads, "She deserves to know." June investigates the sender's identity in Kevin's email and discovers security cameras Kevin had purchased for the user. She logs into the CCTV with Kevin's email and a new password, revealing that the cameras are installed at an abandoned house. To her surprise, the house is her family's old vacation home, and she recognizes parts of the interior. She receives a call from Jimmy, Kevin's friend, who claims to have information about Grace. Frightened by Jimmy's arrival, she unexpectedly reveals himself as her father, James. June is astonished to discover that her father, whom she believed had died 12 years ago, is alive and standing in front of her. James explains that her mother was not Grace Allen, but Sarah. He details how Grace took June away from him and falsely accused him, resulting in his imprisonment for 12 years on fabricated charges. James repeatedly mentions that Grace intended to keep June away from him. He discloses that he met Kevin in prison and hints at a premeditated plan before Kevin met Grace. June suspects that her father wants to reclaim her and that he is lying about her mother. Terrified, June tries to answer a call from Vina, but her father kidnaps her, placing her in the trunk of his car. A playback video from 2008 reveals June playing with her father. However, James reveals himself to be emotionally unstable, scolding her mother without cause when June moves to another room. The scene exposes James as a domestic abuser and drug user who posed a danger to the family. A heated argument ensues between Sarah and James, culminating in Sarah reporting James to the police. In response, James threatens to find her. To safeguard June, Sarah initiates a procedure to erase her previous identities, disassociate from family members, and adopt a new identity as Grace Allen, with the aid of her lawyer, Heather. It's revealed that Grace edited the opening video to remove evidence of James's assault. In the present, James brings June to an isolated house, forcibly tying her to a chair. Armed with a gun, he proceeds to a nearby shed. James confesses his intent to kill Sarah for separating him from June for 12 years. However, Sarah manages to strike James and locks him in the shed. James shoots at the lock to break free and catches them off guard, locking them inside. He goes outside with a shovel, preparing to dig a grave for Sarah. Realizing the dire situation, June spots a camera in the room and appeals to anyone potentially watching through a live stream. Recalling her smartwatch, she uses it to contact Javier and provides him with clues to locate her. The call is suddenly dropped, and James re-enters, demanding June hand over the watch. To shield her daughter, Sarah intervenes, resulting in James shooting her. An alarmed June attempts to flee her father, who tackles her. Before matters escalate further, Sarah stabs James in the neck with a shard. Despite his injury, James manages to leave the room, locking both June and her severely wounded mother inside. The father searches for the nearest hospital but collapses before reaching it. June rushes to her dying mother and apologizes profusely. She recalls her mother's overuse of Siri and remembers her smartphone in front of her computer. June approaches the CCTV, uses the cameras, and instructs Siri to call the police. A SWAT team arrives and rescues both of them. The story of Grace Allen's abduction is adapted into an episode of a Netflix series. Grace survives her gunshot wound, and June enrolls in college. Their bond strengthens, and June regrets her past treatment of her mother. Grace forms a friendship with Javier, introduced by June.